that shade of green, it might have been the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And there was a tire swing. And the apples, oh, I'm telling you, apples ain't the same anymore.
Pete, would you shut the hell up? All right, little brother, I get out of here tomorrow, okay?
Marius, you can't come back here. We owe Vince 100 grand.
If you don't, give me my money. I'm gonna take your brother's hand, and I'm gonna snip off a finger. Pretty soon, I'm gonna run out of fingers.
Hey, Pete, where's the farm? I'm a confidence man. I give people confidence, they give me their money. Hi, Grandma, Grandpa. It's me, Pete.
I know something that they don't know. I know something that they don't know.
Where have you been for the last 20 years?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
You stole from me.
You're close to getting some big money. You just gotta trust me on this, all right?
You got 7 days, Marius.
How are you gonna get 100,000 in a week?
Liar gets caught in a lie, they don't come clean, they build a bigger lie.
I'm surprised they didn't just run.
Yeah, he's my brother. There's gotta be $100,000 in the safe.
Something is off about this guy.
Take off now, we're gonna be on the run from Vince and the cops forever.
Is this someone I trust? Listen to me.
I'm gonna get you out of this. I never leave anything up to chance.
Wow. What a performance.
I know you're upset.
Upset? I don't think I am. Do I look upset?
Let's see what you've got.
If you can't get justice, you get revenge.
If you think you know who I really am, you've been conned.
Sneaky Pete has been in the works for a little while.
Yeah, it has been in the works. We shot, I remember we shot the pilot, I think, almost 2 years ago now. It was originally for CBS. The showrunner, David Shore, we had constructed it more in the way of what would be, you would see on CBS, like a procedural show. CBS didn't pick it up, and then Sony, who was the production company, shopped it around, and Amazon decided to give it a try, in the sense that what they do, I guess, is they put the pilot out there, or a pilot episode of a show, and then they let people vote on it. And so there's this direct connection with the audience, and then I guess people responded to it. So then we went into making something that was more like a binge watching show, I guess, or something. I guess that's the expression that they call it.
What attracted you at that point to doing TV? You said when it came to around the time of early in your career in suburbia, you know, the TV landscape was a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And now with something like Sneaky Pete, what is the new attraction? What is the new landscape?
Well, yeah, that's a whole conversation there, because I think what is it, 3 or 4 years ago, when House of Cards came out, and you heard that David Fincher was doing television with Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright Penn, they were doing this TV show, and that was like what everybody was talking about. And then on top of that, they were going to drop, I don't know how many episodes it was, but drop the whole show to where you could watch it almost as if you were downloading from Apple TV, or going to the DVD store, watching it at your leisure, and it's really amazing what that's done for the medium as a whole. I think obviously there was cable television before that and HBO, but this is something that's different, even as we experience films and television collectively and sociologically. But it's really put a lot of competition in the marketplace, because I think people are approaching it and looking at it as if it's a 10-hour novelistic film, and it's almost like it's the medium's been reinvented, and so that was something that was really attractive to me, and I think we were all very excited when we heard that Amazon was interested, and then going forward with everything. On top of of course, working with someone who I think is one of the great American actors, Bryan Cranston.
When did he come on board?
Well, this was born out of, apparently, as he says, he was giving an Emmy speech one year.
One of the many speeches,
Yeah, right.
award speeches Bryan Cranston has.
Yeah, and he had mentioned something about growing up and being, or his family used to call him a sneaky Pete. And then I guess Zach Van Amberg from Sony called him the next day and said, "Hey, I think this could be a show." And then Brian had some. So it was conceptualized. And then they started working with David Shore. So it was conceptualized between, I think, the three of them. David and Brian went off to write the pilot, and it went from there. So he's producer. He directed actually one of the episodes. I think episode 7. And then when it was CBS, he wasn't going to be involved in an acting capacity. When it went over to Amazon, I think he was really trying to support the show. And
so there's less sort of a CBS procedural. You might be doing 24 episodes.
Yeah.
Amazon, he can kind of devote the time that is needed for a character there.
Yeah, and it was his involvement was going to be coming in, popping in here and there, according to whatever inspiration the new showrunner Graham Yost had for him. And as it turns out, he is the primary antagonist in the show. And that was definitely exciting for me. But there's Brian, I think, really at his best. I mean, it was. I would even on my days off, I would go down to work and just to watch him and be engaged or be a fly on the wall.
Now you get to play a con man in the show. Did you do some I love movies about con men, like the old David Mamet movies, like House of Games. Did you do some sort of some con man research?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are sort of conventional structural factors to swindling or confidence game plot, but for me, I think one of the things, again, it goes back to working the difference between doing a film or a television show. It's really not. It's kind of hard to do research or get into that, other than just reading books or trying to learn card tricks that somebody else is going to do anyways, who's the professional. But because you're doing, there's, if you think about it, there's 10 episodes. Each episode is about 60 pages long, so that's about 600 pages over a 4-month period. And I'm only working with sequentially 60 pages. That's all I really know. And I guess that has its advantages and really its disadvantages. So doing a TV show is not necessarily about, okay, this is an amazing story so far, as much as it is about the people that you're working with and the company you're keeping. And I think that as well started burgeoning and growing into something that I was just bowled over about. Margot Martindale and Peter Garrity, Marin Ireland, who is an amazing actor and a stage actor here in New York. And so I think that's what it is, and it's about the attitude really and the approach going to work every day, as hard as it is, because I think that doing hour-long episodic television, I think, is for all the jobs, for acting and writing and directing, can be one of the more challenging mediums in any sort of storytelling, filmmaking, whatever.
It's so interesting. I don't feel like it gets the credit as that it deserves. I think so often people assume that TV is kind of like a cushy job, whereas like the only real cushy job in TV is kind of like a multi-camera sitcom or something, which is like...
that's definitely... Yeah, and you would think the opposite, because you're doing something in front of a live audience and you want to, you have to have the whole entire episode memorized, and it's like doing a play. But no, it's that really is, I think, the most cushy job. But yeah, hour-long episodic television, it can really it can be tough. But I think, again, with this group of actors and these writers, it was just it was. I mean, I don't want to sound like hokey, but it was inspiring, really, to come to work every day.
I asked someone this the other day, and it's something that I think is fascinating when it comes to an actor doing hour-long television and doing it at a stage of their career where they've done a number of films before. They've worked for, they've worked in Hollywood or in movies for 10, 15 years. Do you think that that doing this now, you're sort of able to do it because you've worked for so long? Because doing hour-long television, you're going from scene to scene very quickly. You kind of have to pull from your craft and know how to get to places very fast so you can keep going and keep moving on.
Yeah, and I think that you can get devoured by something like that, or you can change your attitude and use it to kind of like build your muscles in a way. I think that it's easy to slip into something where you take something like that for granted, and if anybody is an example for somebody who's focused and committed and grateful, really, in a way, to be working and there and creating, I think it would be Brian. And I think he was sort of the leader of the pack.
He's kind of the master of hour-long television at this point with Breaking Bad, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, yeah. That to me, I think is some of the best acting I've seen in any medium for filmmaking or television. But it also, I think, again, going back to what's happened in television in the last couple of years, I think that I grew up in an era where the actor studio and all the actors that came from that were still, it was the 90s, and it was the independent age, and it was all about, I guess, your merits as an actor weren't necessarily about how many followers you had on Twitter as much as it was really just like desperately trying to be better at what you did, and I think that at that point in time, television, that wasn't the focus of it, as much as it was doing something with Martin Scorsese or Paul Thomas Anderson, who was coming, making movies at that time, and Quentin Tarantino, yada yada. Yada yada. What is that? But
have you been in a Paul Thomas? You haven't been in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie?
No.
Okay.
But I think that television has almost commandeered that mentality, that those values, and that's I think that really sort of like exploring deeper emotional or intellectual stories, really this is like the playground for that.
Well, it's almost impossible. You rarely see a movie, not to harp on this movie, but just to bring it back, you rarely see a movie like Suburbia now where it's a group of somewhat unknowns at that time who are given a great, deep script and like a good director and given like, I wouldn't say that I don't think that movie had a huge budget, but I'm sure it had enough of a budget where you guys were sort of comfortably making a movie.
Yeah, I think he had the budget that he wanted. It was the movie that Richard Linklater made right after Dazed and Confused, and I think any movie to a greater or lesser degree struggles, and there's never enough money for a movie. But it's interesting to look at and question whether or not that movie would have been made in today's climate. Because
if it was made, it would be made with a group of stars who had lots of Twitter followers or like who were already massive names of some kind, like Disney stars or something.
Sure, and I think that that and who knows what would have happened with it? Would it have gone to the iTunes graveyard, so to speak? Which is not. I live in the iTunes graveyard. I would say I'm there all the time watching movies.
I've never heard it described that way. It's a perfect description for it. It's become the new. There's great movies in iTunes, and lots of great movies go to the iTunes graveyard, but it has become the new sort of straight-to-video shelf.
Yeah, exactly. But still, it's also there's and not for being a B movie or anything like that. There are some great films that just can't find an audience, or the producers or the marketing team can't figure it out. And I say that, and then I look at a movie like Fences, which I think is astounding what he did and what they all did. And I don't know, I think that's a movie that defies this mentality of having, if you're going to go make a 2-hour film that's released in theaters these days, it's got to be an event film, and it's, you know, he did something that he directed, that he acted in, was basically two people talking in a backyard, and it's phenomenal, and it's moving, and it shows at the box office, I think.
Fences is unbelievable. I mean, in many ways, for a small group of people, it is an event movie because it's August Wilson, but that is still a very
yeah. But I think also the event for me personally is watching the two of them talk, I guess, or discuss issues within their family.
You've always been, I think, since early in your career, kind of compelled by working with great directors or making great work, be it on Sneaky Pete or even, you know, some of the, you were in Selma with Ava DuVernay's Selma, and you have a film coming out called The Bad Batch, the Anna Lily Amanpour. Yeah, I saw her first film, which was wonderful, but this was like a big deal. Are you always looking for sort of like, is that your goal, to work with new and great filmmakers?
Yeah, I think there's so many different factors that go into making a decision to act in a movie, and I think that I was sort of loose about my what those factors were in the past, and you know, at a certain point, I sort of refocused, and really, it's not just about the script or the character. Or the amount of time, but it really is about the filmmaker and the rest of the people. And for me, a cinematographer's work or who the cinematographer is really important. Really? Oh yeah. And
can I ask, when has that been important in terms of a movie that you were in, where you were like, I'm a go at that cinematographer?
No, it's not necessarily based on the cinematographer, but only. But again, it's a collective set of factors. But it is important to me, and I actually I got really heavily involved in cinematography myself about 10 years ago, and then really started focusing and doing it professionally about 5 years ago, I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel bad that this is like me showing my cards here. I had no idea.
Oh yeah.
How have you been working on it professionally? What have you been doing?
Just doing music videos and commercials, really. The last thing I did was a Nissan commercial. I shot a Nissan commercial.
That sounds humble, but it's like a huge deal when it comes to professional work as a cinematographer.
But I think it's a way to be behind the camera on set, to look at things objectively, which I think for 25 years, it was always this sort of solipsistic internal thing, and my favorite thing in the world is movies and storytelling with a camera, and so it was almost like just by default I needed that objective perspective to get out of being sort of internalized, or, you know, I don't know, whatever the psychology, but yeah. So and then you know, my mother, we grew up. She got her master's degree at Berkeley in the '60s, and always had a camera with her. She got a master's degree in fine arts, and so it's just kind of like, I think, in the DNA, I guess, or whatever.
That's a super nerdy question, but what's your gear when you're shooting? What kind of camera do you like to shoot on the most at this point?
For me, I actually it really depends on what you're doing and what the best tool for the project to tell the story. But I have a relationship with the guys at Red. I actually just technical nerd. I helped design some of a module that goes into the firmware of the camera. That's just basically a tool, a light metering tool.
That's fucking awesome.
Oh,
sorry,
thanks,
that's really cool, man.
Yeah. So and I love just their mentality. Their sort of renegade, radical thinking. But I also am a huge fan of film. I have 35mm cameras and 16mm cameras that I shoot, and Kodak just is re-releasing the new Ektachrome film stock, which is really exciting. It's a positive film stock, so that has a different look.
Isn't the only, this is, sorry, super nerdy for the audience here, but isn't, when it comes to the Ektachrome that they're re-releasing, isn't like Buffalo 66 the only feature that has been projected
right.
on Ektachrome or shot on Ektachrome
It
entirely?
was shot on Ektachrome. I think there's been other projects that are smaller, sort of art film or like student film. But yeah, it was shot on reversal, and the look is amazing. And I actually recently, I mean, it's so stupid. I went to AGFA. There was some film stock that was reversal for 16 millimeter, and I got it. It's in my refrigerator right now. But then last week, it was literally last week or 2 weeks ago that Ektachrome, they announced it at I think CES or something. Yeah. So yes.
That is awesome, man.
Just
So when you're
out in front of everybody, it's like, shut up.
they're like, aren't you promoting a show? Why are you talking about Ektachrome? It's my fault. I'm a nerd as well. So when it comes to Sneaky Pete, when you're on the show, you know, you've been a part of it for a long time. Do you take part? Do you work with? Do you ask the DP what's going on, or do you try to stay away from it as much as possible because you don't want to overstep or like give an opinion that's going to affect someone's work?
I'd like to say that I don't bother them at all, and I do my job, but it's not true at all. And I just, I think I just have a fascination with that. For everything, what's the new follow focus, wireless, you know, whatever they're doing, and why are they putting the light there, and what that's about. But then at the same time, I think that, you know, there's also, you know, you got to do what you're doing while you're doing it, and support, really, you know, as much as you can.
Let's turn it over to the audience for some questions. Right here.
Hey, Giovanni.
Hi.
So you've done some comedy or comedic roles too, like in My Name is Earl and the TED films. Do you approach those any differently, or are those like any more fun or less intense for you?
Yeah, well, I think any project, any movie that you do, it's looked at as a whole new endeavor, a whole different way of life. You got to kind of like reinvent the wheel. But I think at the foundation of any of that is really just, hopefully, not to sound, well, I don't know, whatever. I don't know how I sound right now. Is just you try to do, for me, is just as much work and throw yourself into it as much as possible within, you know, period, I guess. That would be it. I think that sometimes it's difficult to do that, and everything has its challenges, but yeah.
And that was also with the TED films with Seth MacFarlane, who you've sort of worked with a few times at this point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Seth. I mean, I think he's a genius. You know, he's and such a good person. And I would do whatever with him. I think that he's incredible. He's got this new show that's called Orville that I think you probably, or maybe I shouldn't. Anyways, oops. No.
Ektachrome, right?
Yeah,
Ektachrome.
Oh no. But anyways, yeah, he's doing a new show.
Next question.
Hey Giovanni. So I got two questions for Sneaky Pete. Like with the role that you got to play, do you think you'd be able to use those skills in the real world? And for my second one, you were in one of my favorite war movies, Saving Private Ryan. So I was just wondering, what was it like getting to work with Spielberg and Tom Hanks?
Well, yeah, to answer your first question, you know, I don't know, because the stakes are different for me in that I'm an actor, and then I think for Marius, the character that I'm playing in Sneaky Pete, you know, it's life and death. You know, he's got a gun held to his head. So it's, you know, I don't know. I think there's a lot of talent that can be born from that. Maybe that's not a funny joke. And then Private Ryan, yeah, I think I probably speak for a lot of us, including Tom on that movie, that one of the most vivid memories about the process and working on that film was the boot camp experience that we had beforehand, which was about 2 weeks before the movie started. And that was, you know, Adam Goldberg and Jeremy Davies, Barry Pepper, and Vin Diesel.
Always forget Vin Diesel.
Yeah, Tom Sizemore was in that, and that was really an incredible experience. A guy who, from what I understand, was actually a colonel, but we had to call him Captain Dale Dye. Just an incredible person. Was twice our age and getting up before all of us, going to sleep after we did, would run faster and longer than anybody, smoke twice the amount of cigarettes and during that time period. And that was really one of those formative experiences of here you have a military guy who's teaching you about acting in a way that that really was one of the best acting lessons. Yeah, incredible.
And it's a great example of sometimes how I think people who were a part of films, that people love, sort of remember the experience. Because for everybody else, we remember the sort of final product and assume that, like, for you as the actor, like, what is that like for you? And for you, you're like, I met this guy, he was great. Like,
yeah. There was, I think, there was a moment. There was the scene where we're running up a hill and my character gets shot and I'm supposed to die in this scene. My character, I played a medic, Wade, and I remember they made this prosthetic thing for my body and they had all the bullet holes in it, so then they would pump blood. And the thing is that the blood was glucose based, so it was really sweet, even to the taste, but it also attracted bees. So I remember my recollection of that is like, oh, fuck, I hope I don't get stung. And then, and then trying to die and say mama over and over again. And then realizing, oh shit, this is a Steven Spielberg movie. Anyways, yeah.
Like, just now I remember that moment where you were dying and you were saying to Mama and how powerful it was to watch, but now I just think that you're sitting there going,
no, sorry,
Mama, don't get stung by bees, Mama, don't get stung. And when does Sneaky Pete premiere? When can be? It's on right now, right?
It's on, yeah. It just came out, and I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, and we found out we got picked up for a second season, so we're all really excited.
Congratulations, man! It's a wonderful show. It's great to see you in a show, and I can watch all the time. Giovanni Ribisi, everybody. Thank you.